take new business out of order. All right, I'll call the school committee meeting to order at 6:01. We all stand for the pledge. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Ms. Ware, if you take roll.
Kara Thompson.
Here.
Nancy Farrell. Here. Kathy Levers.
Here.
Diana Coyne. Here. Bob Mancini.
Here.
Mayor Reichelt.
Here. Student Representatives Report. Ms. Debian.
So I just have a few announcements. School clubs are as active as ever. Clubs like Irish Club, National Honor Society, Training Active Bystanders, Drama Club, Key Club, and many more have gotten into the swing of regular meetings. The robotics team will be having their car show on October 29th. The school store has been open every day during all 3 lunches for students to get their Westside apparel and show their school spirit through a variety of items. The homecoming dance is scheduled for October 20th from 6:30 to 9:30 p.m. The classes with the highest attendance this year participated in a school-wide basketball game last Friday, and the junior and senior classes went head-to-head in a very close match. The counseling department has been offering Common App workshops to students who need assistance with their college application processes. 15 new flags were added to the Hall of Flags. When a student is the first of their country to join our school, that country's flag is added to the hall, and the school works very hard to identify new students and represent their flag. 11th grade will also be taking their PSATs tomorrow, and Course will be having their concert on October 27th. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions from the school committee?
Can I ask one? You said there were an additional 15 added. What's that make the total? Do you know?
It's a very long haul, so I personally haven't counted.
I don't have an exact number. Right now, we're working on redoing the key that names all the flags, so I can get that to you.
I had a quick question for the robotics. You said it's a car show? Car show?
Yes, it
Where's
was a
that
car
gonna
show.
be?
Sorry, what was
Where is it going to be held?
that? Mr. Danby.
Do we know? Oh, it's at the high
it is
school?
the high school.
Oh, okay. Cool.
Yes, that is correct.
All right. Thank you.
Hey, Will, do you mind turning on your microphone, please?
Sure, Brian. Thank you. My apologies. School committee reports. Ms. Farrell.
Thank you, Mayor. The Budget Subcommittee continues to meet on a regular basis. Discussions involved the items listed under the Business Manager's report tonight, so you can see we have had some very long meetings as the list there is pretty long. Thank you.
Anyone else? No, Ms. Thompson.
It's quick, I promise, Diana. The school committee search, the superintendent search committee is still accepting letters of interest if you'd like to be on the committee. You have to submit them to Ms. Ware by October 14th. There's also 2 public forums being offered on October 11th and October 13th. There's various times for teachers and administrators, but the public open forum time is 4:30 to 6:30 at the public library on the 11th and 5:15 to 7 at the high school on the 13th. There's also an online survey, and all the information is on the West Springfield Public School website.
Anyone else? Ms. Coyne?
I have a quick update from the Lower Pioneer Valley Career and Tech Education Center. Just wanted to let folks know that they held a soft skills panel last week for students. They met with various members from businesses just to understand, strategies and work ethic type things as they're getting prepared to go out into the workforce. And they've also hired a new DEI coordinator, diversity, equity, inclusion, named Abdullah Ghazalani. And we have 7 students from West Springfield that have attained their Student of the Month award for September. So congrats to our students over there. That's what I have.
Thank you. Anyone else? Seeing none, we're going to take this agenda out of order a bit, per the Vice Chair's request. We're going to take new business before presentations. We'll start with the high school field trip requests. Our first is a band request for Philadelphia, and then a second choral request for New York City. We'll start with band. Mr. H.
Good evening. It's good to see everybody. So it's been 3 years since the band has had a travel opportunity. Obviously, the pandemic kept us away. And we're looking to travel again. Traveling is a big part of the program in terms of retention, exciting the program, building towards goals, growing the program. So we traveled 3 years ago to Washington, D.C., and now we would like to travel again with the same company, Heritage Music Festivals, and do a competition in Philadelphia. The trip will be in April 27th. It's a Thursday, the 28th, a Friday, 29th and 30th. So Thursday through Sunday, 4 days, 3 nights in Philadelphia with the band, doing a competition, concert band competition, doing a public performance in Philadelphia with the marching band. So we're hoping to get approval for that from you, and I'm just wondering if there's any questions, any concerns.
I think we're always concerned that there's students who can't afford the trip. Is there fundraising for the students? And if there isn't enough, is there a way that those students can be funded?
Yeah, the WSMPA, the Music Parents, we are actively fundraising. We've just completed a very successful Big E parking run down at Memorial School. And we're going to use a portion of that money to help students pay for this. Students will be making payments, but students who qualify for the free and reduced lunch programs at our school will be able to ask for additional assistance. And in addition, the music parents are going to be paying for our motor coach to bring the cost down for every student. So we will have financial aid available for students who need, and a few more fundraisers between now and April as well to help bring the cost down.
Any other questions? Ms. Farrell?
I'm just going to make a motion. Motion to approve the Banfield trip to Philadelphia from April 27th through April 30th, 2023.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? Ms. Farrell?
I just think we're all thrilled to see the band. Like, seeing them at the Big E, I was away for the football game that they were at, but I mean, I just think the whole community, in their new uniforms, yes, they look fantastic, and the numbers have increased so much. We're just thrilled that the band is doing so well at this point.
Thank you.
Motion and a second. Any other further discussion? Seeing none, by a show of hands, all those in favor? Opposed? Unanimous. Enjoy.
Thank you very much.
Next up, the choral request for New York City, April 13th to the 16th. Ms. Taylor.
Hello. Am I close enough now?
Yeah.
There we go. All right, yes. I, like Mr. H, am proposing to take the choral group to New York City in April of 2023. Very similarly, this is a program that is working to gain more students and to get them excited about singing and performing again. I am in my second year at West Springfield, and I know that pre-pandemic they were planning a trip to go to New York City that some students still remember, and that's part of why I chose this destination, is to kind of fulfill that trip that never happened, and also to bring some new students who are really excited about the opportunity. So the trip would be from April 13th, which is a Thursday, through April 16th, which is a Sunday, which was when we would return. So very similar timeline, 4 days, 3 nights in the city. We would be able to perform at the competition, which is done through the same team, Heritage Festivals. Mr. H has been a really great help to me. This is a first trip for me to plan, and I'm really excited about having the students have the option to compete, to perform publicly, and also to just experience the culture that New York City really offers to students who are probably not have traveled there before. And so we're looking for approval to be able to take them.
Any questions? Ms. Farrell?
I'm assuming the same thing is with the fundraising, that you will be helping students who financially cannot afford the trip.
Yes.
Okay.
We're also planning to do some events. We want to do a talent show that will help, support the students. But yeah, the same thing. The WSMPA has been really generous and will pay for the buses and for students who have financial needs.
And again, we're thrilled to see our arts program taking off and our students performing the way that they have been. So thank you too.
Thank you.
Any further questions? I'll entertain a motion.
Motion to approve the choral field trip to New York City from April 13th through April 16th, 2023.
Second.
A motion and a second. Any final discussion before a vote? Seeing none, by a show of hands, all those in favor? Opposed? In favor? Okay. Unanimous. Thank you. Enjoy.
Thank you very much.
All right, final item, new business before we return to the presentations. District school building utilization analysis, a request for an additional $50,000 to be paid for by school choice. Just a quick overview. We originally allocated $50,000 last year with our thought of being that's how much it would cost. We received the PCC interviewed, selected a candidate. The price proposal came back at $100,000, so double, but it's a not to exceed contract, meaning they won't exceed $100,000. I mentioned this last time at our last meeting. After speaking with them myself, there's a lot that we can cut down on the cost, but to sign a contract with them, we have to have it all allocated. So they're not saying we're going to spend $100,000 definitely. It just means we can spend up to that, and we'll have them and the PCC report back to us as it moves forward. Any questions? I'll entertain a motion. Ms. Farrell?
Motion to approve $50,000 additional funding for the district school building utilization analysis, and the funding is from school choice.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, by a show of hands, all those in favor? Opposed? Unanimous. Thank you. We'll move back up to item E, presentations. We'll start with the high school. Principal Danby, who's going to get us to count on the flags.
You got it. And Ms. Farrell, we have a home football game Friday. You're welcome to come see the band then as well.
Your old district.
You better be wearing the blue, though. All right, well, thank you for having me here. I'm excited to talk to you about the accountability data that was put out by DESE. I do want to start, we had a meeting with DESE about 2 weeks ago, and they were very clear that when we talk about this data with our stakeholders, to keep a few things in mind, which is all big picture. The last 2.5 years, we're not normal in any stretch of the imagination. Absenteeism was up for a variety of reasons, quarantine a second and third time in many cases. So really, education was disrupted. And what they want and what they're hoping for is that this data from this year is baseline data. We look at this year and measure forward rather than backwards. In saying that, in a few instances, I did compare to previous years where it made sense, and other places I did not. Sticking with big data, school accountability, this is our percentile. So for this year, we were in the 26th percentile for the state. This measures our school against other high schools in the state. You can see in the data that we're trending upwards from 2017 to 2019. Notably, 2020 and 21, they're missing. The data is missing because the state did not measure percentile for most schools in those school years due to COVID. Now, what you don't see in this graph is the years leading up to 2017. We were as low as the 10th percentile years ago. Around 2015, we started to see that trend change. Under leadership of Dr. Perone at the high school, we saw upwards trending where our percentile doubled, more than doubled. I'm happy to say that we're still in the mid to upper 20th percentile. Still room for growth, but at least during the pandemic, that did not change.
May I ask a quick question on that slide? Because what is the measurement on the left side for the percentile? What does it mean?
That is the percentile.
Of
So
what?
on the
Like-
left, so 0, 10, 20, 30, that's the height, that's the percentile, and the years across the bottom axis.
But I don't know what the percent means.
So it's measuring all the high schools in all of Massachusetts and putting them into percentiles.
Is it absenteeism?
So
Like, what's
it's
it measuring?
partial absenteeism,
Okay.
MCAS data, so absenteeism in terms of chronic absenteeism. This year, it's based off of 20% rather than 10 in typical years. We have math, English, and science MCAS data. On top of that, we also have growth within the MCAS. I can pull it out if you want to know all of it.
No, it was really kind of, I struggled a little bit because I wasn't exactly sure what the definition of the slide was for the percent. So thank you for clarifying that.
You're welcome.
Okay.
And a couple others are dropout rate, graduation rate.
So all that stuff's just merged into this one?
Yeah, those are the criteria that they look at, and all high schools are judged on that.
Yes, absolutely. And the data following is all
Okay.
part of that.
Thanks.
Absolutely. And advanced coursework is another one for 11th and 12th graders. So our achievement level, so I have a comparison between our high school on the left and the state on the right. So the highlight here is that we have lower percent of students not meeting expectations. However, we do have room for growth to move students from partially meeting expectations to meeting expectations and meeting expectations to exceeding. We're currently with Ms. Fenn, we are working on a review for the curriculum in English. Hasn't happened in about 12 years. So we're looking at it from an equity lens, an alignment lens to the curriculum, make sure that our students do have access into it and ease of use, as well as our teachers. So we're going to do a full review. We're going to get a subcommittee of teachers to work with us to do a review to ensure that our curriculum is up to date and useful for our students.
Is this 1 year or is it?
It's the current year. It's last year's
So
test
2022.
results.
Okay.
Yep, from the MCAS. Math, we see very similar, where we are below the state in terms of not meeting expectations, and still a need to bring our students from partially meeting to meeting and meeting to exceeding. We just adopted a new curriculum, so over the next 2 to 4 years, we should start seeing this trend change and move towards meeting and exceeding expectations. So for these two MCAS, these are the numbers. We have the average scaled scores, the student growth percentile, and the participation rates of our students. For the student growth percentile, a range that we would like to see this in, a typical growth range, is between 40 and 60. In English, we see that it's slightly below that, and math is well within range. One thing to note here is that for our student growth percentage, this measurement's different than most years, where typical years goes from 8th grade to 10th grade. The students are in cohorts with students around the state that have received similar scores and then measured against those same students in 10th grade. For this measurement, it's dating all the way back to 7th grade, so there's an extra year in there. So 7th grade to 10th grade, and so they're looking at those cohorts. So it's a little bit different than looking at years past. Science, this is a big glow for the high school and the science department. What we can see here when we compare to the state is that we have a higher percentage of students meeting and exceeding expectations compared to the state. The science department's been working really hard to change this over the past 5 to 8 years. There was a big shift when Dr. Perone was sitting in my seat, and we also work to have an extra lab every other day for science so they can get that hands-on, real-world understanding of the science instead of limiting them to only 45 minutes per day. So here are some highlights. Students with disabilities. So I know I said I wouldn't compare from previous years, but in this category, this subcategory, we saw some great growth. Not only that, their growth exceeded the growth of our students overall, which I wanted to show because our teachers in this area have worked very hard. We have really supportive and wonderful director at central office that's in my building all the time and has been just wonderful for us. And I wanted to highlight that because they have, through a pandemic, really done well. L's and former L's in ELA, they had a huge increase as well, 11.5% increase. And then science, as I said before, 7% higher than the state for meeting and exceeding expectations. This doesn't mean we're done. We have a lot of work to do, as we saw in the previous slides, but just some highlights to enjoy. Dropout and graduation rates. So through the pandemic, we held steady between 1% and 2% for our dropout rate. The cohort graduation rate and the 4-year adjusted rate. These look wildly different by about 4%. So I want to take a second just to explain the difference between the two. So the 4-year cohort graduation rate, those are the students that start in 9th grade. They take away anyone that transfers out of the district, and they put in transfer students from out of district into our school. For the 4-year adjusted rate, what they do is they take our 9th graders that start with us, and over 4 years, they take out any transfers, but they don't put in transfers into our school. So what it shows is that the students that stick with us for 4 years graduate at a high rate, or higher rate. Any questions on dropout rate or graduation rate? All right. So advanced coursework is another one of those metrics that we're held to in our accountability data. With that, they only look at 11th and 12th graders that are successfully completing this advanced coursework. What you're going to see in a little bit when we have Mr. Carter and a couple of students come up is that advanced coursework at West Springfield High School starts in 9th grade, okay? So when we look at our data, it's not taking it in totality when we look at online on the DESE website for accountability data. We have so much more. We also offer additional programs that are rich and meaningful for our students for life experience, which will come into play when they're looking for additional internships in college. When they're looking for jobs, they have a resume with real-world experience many times in the field that they're pursuing. So that's not captured in the accountability data, but it's very real and alive at West Springfield High School. So first, we're going to start with advanced placement. So over the past 5 years, we saw a trend going up towards 2020 in percent of students that scored a 3 or higher. 2020 sticks out. 2020, we did have high enrollment, which we'll see on the next slide, but we had about 75% of our students get a 3 or higher. What we need to know about that data is that the test was modified. It only went through about 3/4 of the material, and it was taken at home by the students because of the pandemic. We have seen an increase from the previous year and the years past in the number of students scoring 3 or higher in 2022, and that was not a modified test. Keeping with advanced placement, for total number of AP students, this was on the rise, both for a number of students and number of exams through the tenure of Dr. Perone and his leadership. That was one area that he and Mrs. Silvestri concentrated on, was getting more students, more access to higher level coursework that we know is good for them and is going to prepare them for college and beyond. So We saw a dip in 2021 and 2022 for a variety of reasons coming out of the pandemic. Happy to say that that trend has now shifted and we're heading towards the 2020 numbers. We're not quite there, but that's our goal, is to get there and beyond. So here are all the numbers. AP student scoring 3+, that is a qualifying score. Again, was on the rise prior to the pandemic, fell. That also fell because we had less students taking the exams. And we're hoping that that is going to be a trend to rise from there as the other data has.
What was the asterisk on?
Yes, sorry about that.
457.
Thank you for that. The asterisk is what we're expecting for
Okay.
students to take this year. Right now, we have 240 students in advanced placement courses through the College Board, and that will equate to 457 tests, given they all take the test, which they should.
Yeah, I think you kind of have to throw out 2020. It's really not a comparable measure from, you know,
No, that-
how those were modified tests, and they were modified significantly. So, you know, I think looking even just at 2019 to 2021 and skip 2020, you know, you'd had a bit of a leap there.
So
for
I agree with
numbers
you.
of students.
Absolutely agree with you for the student scoring 3+. However, the total number of students being 260, that happened prior to the pandemic. And that's where we want to be. We want to get high numbers of students access to these upper level courses.
Yep.
But I absolutely agree with you for the scores. So for advanced placement, College Board provides us with some good data. So I wanted to show the subgroups within the tests. So the hope and the dream is that the percentage of students in AP courses mirror the percent of students in the student body. It'll never be perfect, one way or the other. However, our numbers do mirror them pretty good, which is what we can hope for and ask for. And I was really excited to see this when I was going through the data a couple weeks ago. So with AP students are traditionally high-achieving students that have done well through school. We also have programs where we attempt to get students that are not atypical, really typical high achievers, where their GPAs are over 4.0 all the time. Students that have challenges with language, so ESL students, students with disabilities, students on IEPs, first year or hopeful first year college students, or first generation college students, first generation high school graduates. So I'm going to call up Mr. Carter in just a second, and he oversees a lot of this programming where we work hard to recruit the middle population. We work hard to get the population that's struggling to a good place. We work really hard with advanced placement. That middle section is all too often forgot about in education. We're targeting them. We're trying to get them advanced coursework and push them up, which eventually we should see bring it on the MCAS, that data also being brought up because they have access to this higher level education. So I'm going to call Mr. Carter up.
How's it going, everybody? It's nice to see everyone. Mayor Eichelt, the whole school committee, new members. So, you know, we've had a couple exciting years, we'll call it. So with the Innovation Pathways program, we, you know, initially, if you don't know much about it, what it is it really gears students up for a career in high-demand industries with 5 key components that they have to, or requirements that they have to fulfill before they graduate. So it starts with career-focused courses. They need to take 2 at West Springfield High School. The next thing they'll have to do is 2 advanced level courses. Can be any combination of AP, early college, or like say Project Lead the Way if we had that programming in our school. And then the last requirement is either to complete a 100-hour internship or on one specific pathway. I know many of you were at our IP capstone final project. So that's an example of what the senior capstone for the advanced manufacturing students do. But everyone else pretty much has an internship. So that puts me in a position to either go out and find some funding through partners, apply for funding through the state, which you'll hear a little bit about towards the end of the slide. All right, I just wanted to make sure everyone kind of knew what the general idea of the Innovation Pathways program is and the need to provide students of all walks of life the opportunity to earn advanced coursework credit. So let's see. So just to start off with the Innovation Pathways program, as you can see, there's a breakdown of the 4 pathways that we have. Nothing too crazy here. As you can see, the 11th grade cohort, that right there was our 2020 group. Tough to recruit for advanced manufacturing or engineering when they're literally sitting at home. So what we did there, we really focused on providing those students with stick courses or through Westfield State, you know, just to try to provide some opportunity while we were in kind of like a very strange state. But as you can see in the last 2 years, we've increased our recruitment. So this past year we recruited 110 new freshmen into one of these 4 programs. Some of the efforts there starts at the middle school. We use MIFA Pathway as the portal to start off the college and career readiness for the students in middle school. It works as a fantastic tool to not only give the students some perspective as to possible careers or college interests, but also allows us to work as a function to prepare students for a Chapter 74 opportunity or get them into an Innovation Pathways program that could ultimately provide them with some early college credit and some exposure into the workforce. Okay, so here's some of the numbers. We are looking to increase, add 1 more pathway. Just, you know, going on this, we're looking at life and environmental science so that there's going to be pretty much a pathway for every student. That's the idea, so that every student has robust partnerships built into the pathway that they're on, you know, starting with our career-focused courses. We can use some of the IP funding to help supply the teachers with hands-on experiments to do, for instance, in like anatomy and physiology, or like child development. Those are both courses along the healthcare and social assistance pathway. And really, it's just a nice way to bring the community together to fund, you know, some fantastic initiatives here in our district. So let's see. So that was just kind of about the Innovation Pathways program. Now, built into there, each of the students that are in the 357, they're going to need to, you know, complete, you know, 2 advanced level courses before they graduate. So, you know, if you look at it and the only option you have is AP, well, it could be extremely tough, especially with the population that we have. So what we want to do is we really want to focus on, you know, that middle 80%. To really try to provide opportunity. We're not only talking about saving money, but we're talking about empowerment, right? We want to make sure that these students know, hey, I can get into a college class and I can pass. I can be the first person in my family to graduate high school. That's what I did. I didn't have an opportunity like this, but when I see students like the ones you're going to see tonight, you know, the sky's the limit for these students, and the earlier we get them going, the more likely they are to change the total trajectory of their life. So really buying into the dual enrollment work-based learning initiative is fantastic for this district, but not only for the students, but for the community as well. So what you have in front of you is just some of the information. First, to let you know who offers early college to students here at West Springfield High School. So as you can see, whoa, 9th grade, Westfield State University. All right, so they offered, starting a couple years ago, they started allowing freshmen, usually during 2nd semester, to enroll into more or less like a psychology 101 rather than a high school requirement, just so that they can get the feel for what a college course would, the expectations would be. So it was a nice way to kind of see, could our higher flying 9th graders handle it? And the answer was absolutely they could. As you can see on here, we were waiting on a specific number for the 9th and 10th grade. So it's actually, there was 11 students in each grade last year that took a course at Westfield State, and 100% passed. So, nobody failed it or got anything lower than a C-. So all of this transferable credit. but we just wanted to confirm that for you. So the other thing you're going to notice too, you see STIC with 11th and 12th graders. Same thing with HCC. We partnered up with STIC to directly align with our Innovation Pathways program. So for instance, if you have students on various pathways, they have the opportunity to enroll in those general ed requirements, right? We're talking about Englishes, maths, so, sciences, like courses like that, but you can also dip into career-focused courses, which is fantastic because that gives the students in each individual pathway an opportunity to dig a little bit deeper into that industry, in going along with some advanced coursework in those general areas. So as you can see, the numbers are looking really good. So students that come through, they have the support not only from the NHS program at West Springfield High School, but at each institution offers tutoring services to each student. So we're really happy with our partners, and we're continuing to build and create new initiatives, which you'll learn about in a second. And then just moving forward, as you can see, the numbers increasing for that IP program at 357. We need to increase those partnerships, right? So we're looking at the Elms College, Bay Path, we're looking at AIC. We're looking to get all of those colleges wrapped up in West Springfield High School so that we can provide early college credit, very likely for free through the institution. But if not, we can utilize some of the IP funding, which we are designated each year through different IP supports to provide these types of opportunities to really hit those, those student populations in need, those Latina students, right? If you look at our early college data, we're hitting that really hard. So, we're really excited about, what we're doing with early college and the markets that we're hitting. So we just want to keep the momentum going. Okay, so what do we have going on this year for early college? So through Westfield Promise, we created a really neat program, actually. So what it is the students are grouped into a cohort sophomore year. So we have 13 students who are currently taking English 101 and a U.S. History 1 course, both for college credit. Both are stretch courses taught by a West Springfield High School teacher as well as a Westfield State professor. Okay, so those students are taught during 5th period for history, 7th period for ELA, and they have the professor come in a few times a week. So far, so good. Everyone likes it, and nobody's dropped out yet. All right, had to bring one joke. So, so next year, what we're gonna do?
Just to interrupt you real quick. Does the professor come here to the students at Westfield?
Yes. So during this first cohort, their sophomore year, it all happens at West Springfield High School, alleviating the issues with transportation, right? That always comes up. So we like to bring them to the district, bring them in. It was a little bit of a process, but it's great that we figured it all out because these students are truly benefiting. We specifically targeted first-generation college students. So I'm able to go through and kind of filter who we really wanted to jump in on this. We did have some that weren't first gen, but for the most part, we were trying to really target that group. So like I was saying, English 101, US 1 during sophomore year. Junior year, that same cohort will take English 102 and US 2 in that same type of format with a stretch class. Then senior year, they're gonna go up to Westfield State and they're gonna actually be, merged into being a traditional college student. So that's really where we tie in those first-generation college students, additional supports. Maybe it's an overnight stay. Like I'm saying, with these partnerships, the more robust they are, the more beneficial for the students in the long run. So that's one thing going on. 13 kids, 2 courses, 3 credits each. So that's going to get a group of sophomores 78 credits. And for you guys, the math people in here, I know we got one over here. He's So, the kids are saving, $1,170 if you look at the average cost of 3 college credits. So, it's a fantastic amount of money that our district is benefiting from just off of this initiative that we put our brains together to make happen. And we're really excited about it. So the second one you're going to see is the STIC Early College at West Springfield High School. So for the past few years, we've actually had various professors coming onto campus. We've had STIC professors run hybrid SolidWorks courses for our advanced manufacturing pathway. But what we tried to do this year is change it up a little. We wanted to see how many students we could, benefit from an on-campus course through a hybrid model. So what we do is we run an English 101 on Tuesdays during 7th period and we run a Sociology 101 on Thursdays during 7th period. That allows students to early release on days that they don't want to take that course, and we wrote up a specific contract for them to be able to participate in that program. So we're looking at the possibility of offering an additional English class in the spring, like a 102, maybe even another course like a statistics to provide another opportunity for students to continuously earn some college credit. And again, starting with the Innovation Pathways Program students who would obviously get the first dibs on this, but we offer it out to the general population as well. So as you can see there, 25 kids, 2 courses times 3 credits, 150 credits. I'm so blind right now, I can't even see that, but I swear it says right around like 60,000 or so. But you know what I mean? That's a great way to maximize our benefit, okay? We have STIC, who's basically funding the professor's salary through a CDEP grant, which we partnered to basically get the funding for that. So we don't even have to deal with the funding, right? Let them deal with it. We just let our kids benefit. So that's just kind of in a nutshell what we have going on right now for early college initiatives. And I'm going to go really quickly because I want to make sure I can bring these guys up. So as we were mentioning, work-based learning, that's a huge initiative for the state, you know, pushing not all just college. They say about 80% of all good jobs are going to require some form of education after graduation of high school. That doesn't mean a 4-year. It could mean a 2-year. It could mean certificates in some of these high-demand industries, right? So it's really getting those students, the exposure, making those connections, networking, doing mock interviews like Dr. Gao was a part of. It's a fantastic opportunity for our students to learn those soft skills that came up earlier. That's gold to me. I love hearing that. But what we did is we grew out our partnership. So this past summer, we had 55 students participate in paid internships through YouthWorks. So that's basically through the Commonwealth Corporation. We've been eligible to dip into the Springfield funding due to our IP designation. So we grew out the list of partners. So now we have Prosper at Monastery Heights. We have Academy of Taekwondo. We have the Greater Springfield Credit Union. We have various healthcare facilities that are willing to take students on as interns. And honestly, they just keep coming in. So we're really excited about that. When you're looking at the value, right, when you have 55 kids working for 8 weeks at about 25 hours a week, it's about $170,000 that our kids are benefiting from, right? That maybe you didn't really think about that. It's really neat. So I just want to thank the partners here in West Springfield, all of the local businesses that are willing to take on our students. All of the reviews were very high. They couldn't believe there weren't that many complaints. I said, I swear I didn't do anything. But it just goes to show you we have a lot of fantastic students here in our district. And, every day when I show up to work, I see these kids and it pushes me along because it's fantastic. So real quick, this year we received some funding to support STEM internships with a little bit of flexibility on where we can place students based on our IP designation. So we're looking to place 75 students for 100 hours per student. And they can actually work any combination of hours. Either we're trying to get them to do like a 10-hour per week for 10-week setup, but they can be very flexible. We've reached out to many businesses in the local area, even in Long Meadow, where I recently moved from. But we got a lot of buy-in from business owners, optometrists, occupational therapists, you name it. They were reaching out, looking at ways that they could help us out. And like I said, we're just really trying to keep developing those partnerships and sending them quality students. But the truth is, these quality students don't just happen, right, in high school. It starts, in elementary school and in middle school, right? And that's where they start to grow and develop. So I just want to take a second to thank everybody here in the district who've gotten these students to, this part to be as marketable as they are, because, it's fantastic to see just how mature many of them are. So yeah, that's pretty much it for me. Let's see. So next I'm going to just bring up Emily Pierney, and she's going to give a little insight to some of the early college courses she's taken.
Oh boy. I'm short. Sorry, everyone. Hi, I'm Emmeline Perney, and I'm a current senior interested in the business field. I've taken a combined total of 10 classes between Westfield State University and Springfield Technical Community College. I began taking dual enrollment courses at Westfield State during COVID as a sophomore. I was looking to challenge myself, but I didn't have room for an AP course in my schedule. After taking my first class, I decided to continue in the following semesters to lessen my schedule of those AP courses. And I enjoy the advantages of dual enrollment because, for one thing, it's free. There is no fee you have to pay in order to participate, and there is no exam that determines whether or not you earn college credit. It's instead spread throughout the semester. I'm a Westfield State student as well as a STIC student the moment I enrolled in a course. With this, I have access to the campus's tutoring services and databases to help me throughout the semester. At first, I just wanted to see what dual enrollment was all about, but here I am, 2 years later, having earned almost 31 transferable college credits as I apply to college. In addition to taking dual enrollment courses, I interned at Prosper at Monastery Heights this past summer with marketing director Jennifer Payette. There, I worked 25 hours a week and followed a typical day in healthcare marketing. Something a classroom won't teach you is that in marketing, no 2 days are going to look the same. Each day, I was learning something new until the end of my internship, where I completed resident care surveys for the company. And my learning won't stop there, as I will soon be interning with the town of West Springfield. While in high school, you want to succeed in the capacity you're able to. Dual enrollment courses have helped me to figure out my learning style and use it to my advantage. As an example, I've realized that I work better without reins on my learning, and this year I made the decision to not enroll in the typical full-year English course. I instead am taking English Comp Honors at STIC, and I'll be done by December. There are numerous opportunities for work experiences and placement to develop skills outside of the classroom. Each student thrives across different environments, and these two programs are a pathway to being successful during your high school careers and beyond. Thank you.
Hello, can you hear me? So my name is Jonathan Hernandez. I'm currently in 12th grade, and I am enrolled in the Innovations Pathways program. I'm just going to give a little summary of my experience with the program. So being introduced to Innovations of Pathways was a bit overwhelming with the variety of opportunities displayed to you with like dual enrollment and the endless amount of internships that are really specific of what you want to do with your career. So 2020, when I was a freshman going into sophomore year, it was difficult to find jobs as the pandemic was around and everything was on lockdown. But during that summer, Mr. Carter found a virtual internship through Mass Hire, which was really awesome for me, and I got a feel of what it's like to be in the workforce. As of the summer of 2022, or a couple months ago, I was put into my second internship, which was an assisted living program at Monastery Heights. This would provide me with hands-on experience with working with residents, providing full care for them, and working alongside RNAs and CNAs. This grew my passion as I want to be a nurse. And I really built a great connection with the residents and my fellow coworkers. Even though my internship ended in September, there's this new internship that's coming up, and it's Genesis Healthcare. This internship would provide me with 100 hours of service, and through this service, I'll be training for a CNA certificate or a medical assistant certificate, one of those, which I'm thrilled about. And I'm also currently enrolled in English and sociology through STIC, and it has gone smoothly. I have my professors come in twice a week, so I have the option, if it's a Monday, Wednesday, or Friday, to either be in the library or head out a little early, so that's good. And I'd just like to thank Carter for introducing me to this program, and was it the MEFA? MEFA? the MEFA thing in freshman year. I feel like it's been like a real good like care package just handed to me, and I'd also like to thank him for the constant emails every week. Those are really nice. Yeah. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Evelyn White, and I'm a sophomore at the high school. I started taking dual enrollment classes my second semester, and I took an ethnic comprehension class, which was very interesting. I actually took it with Emmeline. And over the summer, I completed 2 art classes that fulfilled my high school art credit, so I don't have to take any art classes. And it opens up my schedule for a lot more AP classes or dual enrollment classes. I'm part of the Westfield Promise, which allows me to take an English 101 class, 5th period with a professor, no, 7th period with a professor, and my high school teacher who kind of bridges the gap and prepares us for college MCAS. And then 5th period, I take a history class that is so interesting. We learn about in-depth history of America through the perspective of so many different lenses. And we also have a school teacher who helps us with that. And I'm also part of the IP program, and I'm in nursing healthcare, and I've completed my class requirements. And so now I'm moving on to my dual enrollment requirements, and then hopefully next year I'll be able to gain a internship in some sort of healthcare facility, maybe Monastery Heights with many of the other IP students. I feel like these college classes have really helped me gain confidence in my learning and realize what I need and kind of advocate for myself in the lens of a college class. High school is supposed to prepare us for college, and I feel like so many students, especially the middle ground of students, would really benefit from these classes. Helps so much. These professors are amazing. They're so understanding of so many different types of needs that high school students have. And it kind of does show you the difference between a high school class and a college lecture for 50 minutes during 5th period. And it's just so amazing. And Mr. Carter is like so great with the emails, yeah. And giving us so many different opportunities to learn and grow as students and just kind of like help everyone, not just the kids who are enrolled. And even if you don't enroll, he will still email you every week just in case you change your mind. And I truly think that every student should be enrolled in at least one. If they're not taking an AP class, at least one college class. It's so amazing. Thank you.
I just want to say thank you. I know we went over time, but hopefully it was worth it. Our amazing students and programs that we have at the high school, we really wanted to share that with you. So thank you.
Questions? Ms. Farrell?
Thank you. Thank you, students, for coming. Great to hear from the students and how you're enjoying the program and how it has helped you to grow. What I was wondering is, when students take these college courses on state accountability or based on AP courses, do these count as AP courses?
So the dual enrollment, they do, but only for our 11th and 12th grade students. So we have a great example in the back who took 9th and 10th grade dual enrollment courses. They are not reflected in that accountability data.
Okay. And then how are these courses weighted for their GPA?
So they're weighted as dual enrollment courses are transferred in. I'd have to see if they're equivalent to AP or not. I'd have to check that for you, but I can get that to you. Oh, thank you.
So, all right. The way it goes, because a dual enrollment course isn't housed at the high school, it has no impact on a high school GPA in the current mindset, right? That's how it's supposed to be. When a UMass Amherst looks at Emmeline's transcript and sees that she took dual enrollment courses, it's calculated in the same number as an AP course. That's it. But like I said, at the high school, it doesn't get calculated in at the current way it's done, which I think is correct. Okay.
Anyone else?
Comment.
Yep,
Of
Ms.
course.
Coyne.
You guys are a triple threat. I am so impressed by the poise. How your presentation skills are off the chart. the fact that you're going out into the world, that Westside Public Schools has prepared you. You've got college credits, you have work experience, you have confidence. You guys are going to do amazing things. This program is outstanding, and this should be publicized a lot. I think this is just really, really great, and I'm so excited to see what you guys do in the future, guys and gals. Thank you so much for coming and sharing your experience.
Superintendent?
So I really want to recognize Mr. Carter. When we hired Wes to come in, his business acumen and his marketing ability were really two of the things that jumped out. And the work that you've done with Mr. Danby to create this IP program, this Innovation Pathway program, and partnering with Westfield State and expanding from just STIC, because previously we had Pathways to Prosperity, and that was a STIC collaboration. But by expanding the opportunity and looking to expand it more, we're benefiting more of our students. And it just kudos to you for the work that you're doing, and it's tireless work. And but you see the benefit. I mean, we have great students there, our best resource, and you're bringing them out to the public, and they're seeing it. So thank you very much. Great work, Principal Danby. Mr. Carter.
I'll just second what Superintendent Perrone said there too, and also, Wes, you've done an awesome job. I just have one question. When did the Westfield Promise start? That was my first time too.
Officially it was this year. However, the course that Evelyn was talking about was a dual enrollment course that was held on the campus here at West Springfield High School. We wanted to make sure we kind of like integrated rather than like a bam, drop them in. We wanted to figure stuff out, even with the logistics of like getting an outside professor into the district with all that stuff that needs to get done. But we were really happy we decided to do it. And right now we have that group of 13. The idea with the Westfield Promise is to try to like double the program, for instance. So the next year, rather than running one cohort, we'd have two groups of upcoming 9th graders we'd recruit. But again, we want to make sure we get the buy-in. We also don't want to grow it too fast so that it implodes, right? Like anything, if you grow it too fast, it could definitely work negatively. But I think we have a good thing going. When we're talking about the partnerships, Dr. Perrone, again, Dr. Perrone hired me to help run this program. So, without Dr. Perrone's insight to identify me as someone who could possibly push this forward, it starts with the leadership at the top. And I just want to say that even with you guys, the school committee, I've always been supported. It's always been a fantastic place to work. Like I said, I'm not joking when I see you guys come into my office. I love seeing you guys, and I love having to figure out whatever we got to do for the day because I know it's going to a great cause, and honestly, there's no place I'd rather be. So I just want to thank you guys. Really, it's great work that the kids are doing, but you guys are supporting it. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you for your doing. Anyone else? Ms. Farrell.
After all the excitement about the IP program, I'm going back to the MCAS a little bit more.
It's my turn.
It seems like we've always, since we changed the program at the high school with the curriculum, I know you had mentioned it about the science courses and having the labs. So when we changed that, we've really increased our science scores, and those are basically freshmen who are taking that test. And I often wonder, like, if we can do it in science, why can't we have the same achievement above the state in math and ELA? And probably not an answer to it, this question, but I always think like Algebra 1, where we have that part 1, has to hold kids back because they're not really getting geometry in 10th grade, just a piece of geometry. And probably off the top of your head, you don't know how many sections of Algebra 1, Part 1. Like with the pandemic, I would assume we probably have more sections of Part 1 this year, which then makes it harder for our students to take when they take the MCAS as sophomores, they're going to be behind because they haven't had a full year of geometry.
So last year, and continuing this year, we had an overwhelming amount recommended into Algebra 1 Part 1. It's something we're looking into, in part because the teachers teaching those courses have identified that many of those students should not be in Algebra 1 Part 1. They should be in regular Algebra 1. So we're looking to bring those numbers down quite a bit so that we don't limit the courses that the students can take. Yes, sophomore year, they don't get geometry for the full year. We do make sure we hit the biggest topics we need to for the MCAS, but they are short on some of that content from geometry. So we're looking in that to make sure that for that intervention, the Algebra 1 Part 1, we are only working with the students that should be in there as to support them rather than limit anybody else.
Can I ask another? Do we have any students take Algebra 1 Part 2 and geometry as sophomores? You know, kind of thinking like then they're like on more of a regular college track for finishing math courses at the high school to go to a 4-year college. I know, like, math probably isn't everyone's love, but if you...
It's my love.
Sort of if we could encourage students to take, those two courses you could take simultaneously, and then they would be on a pathway that would more likely enable them to be accepted at a 4-year college, and it would also help our scores.
Yes, so you know, doubling up in math is a tough sell, especially students that are identified for Algebra 1 Part 1, meaning that they were identified to have struggled. So to get them into 2 math classes at once is a tough sell. We have had students double up in the past in different levels: Algebra 1 Part 1 and geometry and Algebra 2 and pre-calc. It's not common practice because that is a challenge. Math is a challenge, as we know. So we don't overly encourage it, but when a student shows any interest or need to get to a certain level, it is an option that we use. You're welcome.
Anyone else? All right, seeing none, thank you very much.
You're welcome. Ms. Coyne, do you have?
Moving on to the superintendent's report, personnel update. You're next, Neil. Hold on. You.
So the document was shared with the committee. I don't know if there's any questions specifically. What I can say is that we've been whittling down the numbers of vacancies, especially with the paraprofessionals. The school that has the most right now need for paraprofessionals is the high school with 3. There are no Unit A positions open. So we are in a much better position than we were in September. And the work that Mr. Minucci and Ms. Bedard are doing to identify candidates that can do the job as a paraprofessional is continuing. And I think two of the 5 elementary schools, we are completely staffed, and then the other schools have 1 para each and a lunch monitor here or a floating sub there. So we're in a much better position than many districts are right now.
It sounds like a much better position than we were at the start of the year, or at least the summer leading into it. Okay.
Absolutely.
Questions for the superintendent? Seeing none, move on to the assistant superintendent's report. Oh, I flew right over that. That's why Nia was looking at me. Just so much MCAS data. We'll move back to presentations, the district MCAS overview. Of course, I didn't want 2 in 1. Graphs and sorry about that. I wasn't downplaying the importance of your presentation. It's just...
Of course not. And you'll be happy to know there's only about 30
I
slides.
checked,
in
but they're
this.
the appendix, so.
There's an appendix, those weird little trick we're throwing you
Yeah.
today. There's only
I
9
told you,
slides
I've
that we're
come
going to
like
speak to.
PowerPoints now, but more than 15 slides.
I know. But I was excited to tell you there was 30 slides just to see your expression. So, as Principal Danby spoke to in his presentation, when DESE called everybody together to look at the MCAS and the accountability data, they really wanted to reframe the results based on the last 2.5 years. And truly, I feel like they were asking for us to give ourselves some grace, to understand and have some compassion for everybody that's been involved in education for the last 3 years, from the students to the teachers to the parents to principals. Because over the last 2.5 years, we've seen things that no one has ever seen before in education, especially during the testing era. We might have seen absenteeism and pandemics in the past, but not like this, and not when testing and accountability were so integral to what's happening within education. One thing they also asked us to think about was recovery. And recovery they defined in 2 ways. When we start looking at the data, and I know they're saying be careful in your comparisons of the data from year to year, but they also said, as you look at the data, think about recovery in a couple different ways. And recovery can mean that your data actually shows growth from one year to the next. But it also could mean that you are showing less decline than is expected based on the last 2.5 years. And there's a couple slides that Dr. Giles is going to show to talk about recovery, because that is a significant piece of the picture that we want people to take away from the presentation. And last, the new baseline moving forward is this data. So the cut scores, the gaps that they're going to try and reduce, those things are all going to be determined by this data set. So we need to understand those things, keep it in the context of the last 2.5 years, recognize that absenteeism affected our instruction, and it also affected the readiness of students to be in class and access the learning. So those are the things that they're asking us to keep in mind.
Just to piggyback on that, so this slide talks about what does, or it provides you concrete examples of what that recovery looks like. Quick, just to digress for 1 second. 2022, this is the baseline that Dr. Perone is talking about. So this is kind of our launch pad for the years ahead. That being said, what this slide does is it highlights exactly that notion of recovery as it pertains to where we were fully able to recover, so to speak, or we had significant gains, or where we really still have some area to grow. We represented that by, the areas where we had significant recovery or full are highlighted in blue. And we just wanted to capture what that looks like. As you can see, and it's rather interesting for those math-minded folk in the room, you can see that that bottom section is our math data, and in all grades we showed significant to full recovery, as they are calling it. And then in ELA, in grades 6 and 7, we showed significant progress towards recovery, but as you can see, there's some other areas that we need to focus our attention on.
So if you look at grade 3, and you see the circled 2019 is 38, right? 38% of our students are meeting or exceeding expectations. In 21, 43%. But then if you look at 22, it goes down to 32%. So that's not recovery from the state's perspective. But if you look at grade 6, right, in the light blue, so we make a distinction between the white rows, the light blue rows, and the dark blue rows. So the light blue row shows 58% meeting or exceeding in 6th grade. Then it goes down to 43%, and then up, if you will, right, to 40%, excuse me, it doesn't drop further. It doesn't decline too much further. So that -3, the state calls recovery, okay? When you look at grade 7, 44 to 38, then it jumps up to 39. That is also recovery, but it's because it increases. So it's less of a decrease is one form of recovery, and an increase is the second form of recovery. So this is how the state is defining that, okay? And I just wanted to bring that to your attention.
I struggle with this whole slide because
Yep.
how is grade 3 the same grade in 2020? That's not the same set of students, or is it? Shouldn't it really be whoever grade 5 is on 2021?
Right, it's a different
Is that,
cohort.
like,
No,
really
you're
what
exactly right.
we're really looking at? It's 41, not the 43. And then go, it's almost like it's a sideways, not straight across. So I was very confused reading this because I didn't quite understand how it's not the same population, I don't think you're talking about.
It's certainly not the same population, it's absolutely correct. But from the state's perspective, when we're looking at that data, what they're saying is, for example, grade 7, it's easier to see. 44 drops down to 38, right, in 21. But when you look at grade 7 and 22, there's recovery. And that's just what they're asking, what they're suggesting, a way to look at this data over time. And they're calling it recovery.
Whereas if you look at grade 7, which was 44, on 2021, they're at 59%. That's better than your 38, right? Because that's 2 years later. That cohort of grade 7 in 2021 would be at 59%, because now they're in, 9th grade, that's 10th grade, sorry. It's just hard to read this, and I don't know if, the state provides this. Maybe the state needs to kind of show it in a different way, but it doesn't make sense to me.
That'd be helpful.
Well, that's where growth comes in. So when you talk about growth, when you talk about growth, that's when you're looking at from one grade to the next. When you're talking about this, you're comparing the standards that are taught at grade 3 to this group of students. The same standards are taught to this group of students, to this group of students. So you're saying, how are our students in grade 3 meeting those standards when you read across by grade level?
Over time.
So let them continue. This is just supposed to be an overview.
Yeah, it's fine.
And we've talked about Vito, Nancy, and I are doing a workshop on this to get kind of more in detail of everything that's going on.
Well, and to Nancy's point, the next slide, we were strategically looking to highlight the student growth percentile, which is exactly what she just talked about. And earlier, Principal Danby mentioned that we want to see growth between, or average percentile growth is between 40 and 60. So as you can see, when you look at this chart on the left-hand side, it's the aggregate report of all grades 3 through 8. And in ELA, we had a student growth percentile of around 50. And in mathematics, it's 43.8, I believe that is. So you can see, again, in the spirit of recovery, when you look at that 2019 to 2022, the growth is, frankly, I would say rebounded. Granted, math is a little less. However, I would say statistically it's in a good place. And then on the right-hand side is the high school data, which Principal Danby's already highlighted. But again, the student growth percentile, we're hovering right around 40, 37.5 for ELA, and for mathematics, 40, is that 46? 46.4. So again, I would say within that average, slightly below average growth, which is, I think, significant when looking at the grand scheme of things. Sorry, one last slide. DESE was very clear with respect to their concern about student attendance and enrollment. And one of the things we felt was very important to bring to light was, or is our data from the past 3 years. And not the easiest chart to comprehend either here, but what it's essentially saying is, you know, in 2022, we had an attendance rate of 91%, compared to 2019, where it was at 94.8%. Then they provided us with the data of the number of days missed, and in 2022, we had 32.9% of our students miss 10% of days, of the days of the school year, and 9.3 of that 32.9%, 9.3% miss upwards of 20% of the days. And as you can see by the data, just looking at the missing 10% days, it nearly, it was over. It doubled, beyond doubled, from 2019 to 2022. So that is significant. And I guess we're not surprised maybe by that data, but it's also an important factor in this conversation. And we have taken steps to address the attendance and making sure students are coming. So, Dr. Fenn.
Okay, so while this is an overview, we really would be remiss if we didn't dig into our numbers a little bit. And so the next 3 slides take a look at our subgroups. In this first slide, we're looking at grades 3 through 8 ELA, and we're looking at subgroup data. For 2022, number of students, could you go back one? Thanks. The number of students meeting or exceeding expectations. Yes, we are comparing it to 2019 just to gauge what's happening in our subgroups, although it's not a perfect cohort, but it is a group of grades 3 through 8, just to get a picture of what happened in 2019 in comparison to what happened in 2022. And as you can see, we have some gaps in terms of our groups. The one outlier is the EL 2022, the number meeting or exceeding expectations is greater than the one in 2019. Again, not an exact cohort. But the rest of the data that we're looking at there, it dips in 2022 compared to 2019. So that's horizontally, but it dips in subgroups as well. So the example showing low-income students' performance in comparison to non-low-income students. And we can see that that trend there happened in 2019 as well as in 2022. So then we took the next step in looking at the math to see if it would look similar. And it does look very similar, very consistent. So in every subgroup category, we do see the dip. Again, horizontally in terms of 2022, but within 2022 in those subgroups as well. And then we took a look at grades 5 through 8 science. And again, the same trend. The outlier, once again, is the L performance did increase in 2022 compared to 2019, but within the 2 years, within 2022 and within 2019, we're seeing that there's the gap in the subgroups that's pretty significant. So, what does this mean to us? This means that we need to look closely at our core instruction in terms of providing entry points for every student to access the curricula and work on our multi-tiered systems of supports. And we recognize this, but I think we can say that as we saw tonight, we have students that are ready to learn, that want to learn. We have teachers that are skilled and extremely passionate, and we have leaders that have the energy that it requires to move the achievement level to where we want it to.
So I think, again, echoing what I heard Principal Danby say, it's not just about some of our students, it's about all of our students. And how can we ensure that we're moving all those students up wherever they are, meeting them where they are, and finding a way to move them up. And if that find is through innovation pathways or an interest-based method, then that's what we need to do. If it's meeting students where they are based on need and providing intervention, then that's what we need to do. Also, we're looking at programming. We have new literacy into reading. We're bringing SPIRE and SIPS, and I know those are two programs for special ed, for foundational skills. We have Ready Math at the elementary. We have illustrative math, Math 180. So we have a lot of new programming. So with that in mind, we have to meet the needs of the teachers too. We have to give them time to plan. We have to make sure that our interventionists and our teachers at the elementary level are able to co-plan and then dig into the new literacy program in order to match the assessment data that they're seeing in their student results. So if little Vito needs, in the Dibbles, it shows that he needs those foundational skills, then what are we going to do to meet his needs? And I think that's really what we're thinking about right now. When we think about instructional model, and Principal Danby talked a little bit about the success that students on IEPs had at the high school level, I think co-teaching has something to do with that. And that inclusion model that we're looking at the elementary level, the middle school, and the high school. It's going to take time, but we have to give ourselves some grace. We have to provide support and time to the teachers and make sure that we're meeting students where they are in order to take them from here to here.
Questions? Ms. Farrell?
So I think when I think about this and the presentations that we had last spring from all the elementary principals about their iReady scores, iMath scores, that so many students had moved up like from the fall of last year, 2021, till the spring of 2021. And so many of them were reading at grade level, doing math at grade level from the beginning of the year. And then when we look at MCAS scores, those are the same kids who took the MCAS test by grade level, but yet our MCAS results are not great. So we know that there was learning loss, but if we had all of those things going and it said that so many of our students had moved up onto grade level, I'm assuming that then our assessments that we're using are not aligned with MCAS because we don't see the same results.
I think it's high stakes testing for kids that, a lot of kids aren't native to America. I put more into what they're showing with iReady and what we saw last year than in MCAS. But that's my personal opinion.
I don't know if that as a question.
Yeah, I'm
so
not
much
sure
as
that
it-
it's a question, it's just a thought process
Yeah.
in my mind. If
Yeah.
we have these assessments that we use, and, like, you know, I know everybody can say, well, MCAS doesn't count, who cares about MCAS? Yeah, they do, the state cares about it. If you're put into categories according to how you score, what you know, your funding is and everything. So there's, you know, who comes into our community. I mean, they're not gonna look at iReady tests if you're gonna buy a home. You're gonna go and look at the state website and say, oh, these are good schools, you know, they have good scores in terms of that. So it sort of even relates to property value of people wanting to come into the community. But if those assessments are not aligned with this assessment, then it seems to me like then there's some problems. Like if what we see there doesn't align with what we see here, and I mean, yeah, like MCAS is, you know, over a couple days, but so is an iReady. It's not like you're taking iReady 2 or 3 times. And I'm sure the kids know that they're taking, it's high stakes when they're taking iReady. You're going like, oh, you're doing iReady today. Well, you're doing MCAS today. It's still the same, you know, it's still a test that's a one-shot deal. And everybody had so much growth that we had, you know, hired interventionists. And like with the reflex math, like kids were doing so much fact fluency in math. And then you look at the math scores and you don't see that in this picture where you saw it in that other picture. And for me, I mean, I guess that bothers me. I mean, you know, yeah, we can talk about recovery, and if you have like a 1-digit number minus, you're moving towards recovery. But yeah, our other graphic showed us that we had improved so much from the fall of 2021 till the spring of 2022. You know, everybody came in, and like when they started in the fall of 2021, you know, there's so many kids not at grade level, below grade level. And then we got to the spring and everybody said, oh, you know, look at the growth that these students have had. You know, we have, you know, 70% of our kids reading at grade level. 60% of them are performing at grade level in math. But then, so to me, like meeting or exceeding expectations is at or above grade level. Partially meeting is below grade level. So I don't know, if like, should you look at the 2 assessments and see, is there any alignment with what we're doing? Because if that's how we're gonna kind of judge our programs, and then this is the big test, if that's not judging them, are we moving in the right direction? And I don't know if there's a question there, it's just a thought process that may be something to look at the district level.
No, it's a great point, Nancy. I think we have had conversations about correlating the data points. We talk a lot about the purposes of the different assessments that we administer. MCAS serves as that summative. iReady is more of a diagnostic to identify where a student is relative to that grade level standard. We do that 3 times a year. Really allows us to progress monitor over the course of the year. But we've also recognized that there is some discrepancies there. The one thing I would add to the conversation and what is up there is the Dibbles. I think I bring that up only because I think it points to the need to really drill a little deeper into a student's background around literacy in particular, as Dr. Perone was mentioning. You know, where are those points of breakdown in a student's learning relative to reading? And so taking iReady, coupling that with Dibbles to really get a much clearer picture of where the student is in the now is, I think, what we're trying to accomplish. Recognizing, though, MCAS matters and MCAS is a valuable assessment. It's one piece of data. So we are trying to be more purposeful with the types of data we're collecting throughout the course of the year. So just another piece to the story around it.
I probably add one thing that when you think about MCAS data, right, this might be a morbid analogy, but MCAS data is really post-mortem data, right? It's the end of the year, it's a summative assessment, and that's it. Now we're looking at, you talk about other assessments, iReady data, it's really a checkup, right, as opposed to the post-mortem. So we're looking at a student through these 3 assessments throughout the school year and really dialing in the need of a specific student. So if I'm not at grade level, or if I'm missing those foundational skills identified in iReady, then we now have the Dibbles to really fine tune and say, these are the skills that we need to work on. The phonemic awareness for veto, or whatever it is. And then we take, as the mayor said, the interventions that we put in place with the reading specialists and the math specialists, and we bring them to the student and help that student grow into the school year. Now, why isn't, or why aren't we getting traction with MCAS specifically? I would argue that the last 2 years, MCAS has not been a priority based on the fact that 2 years ago it wasn't even counted for accountability, right? We had 2 years that it didn't matter for accountability, so there wasn't the same cognizance of its importance as there is now again, where accountability is back in session and back in force. So we have to look at multiple data sets, triangulate, if you will. MCAS is one, iReady's another, Dibbles another, and we're going to look at some of those things together, doing a protocol with the school committee in November, which is what we had talked about before.
And I would just say that I think it speaks to the data, the MCAS data that we did present. We presented the number or percentage of students meeting or exceeding expectations, and then we also presented growth data. So I'm not exactly sure of the data that you might be referring to from last year specifically, but students can make a lot of growth, yet still fall below grade level. So it's important to look at both areas, because we do want to hold our students to high expectations, and we do want to look at the growth, because that is key and it is important, but we also have to take a look at that, that number of students or percentage of students meeting or exceeding grade level. So that might play a role in this variation.
Other questions? Yeah, and I just was going to say, we're not going to debate MCAS, and we'll table that. Other questions? Seeing none, thank you all very much. I apologize that I missed it, as you can see. But it was a good conversation. I look forward to a deeper one later in the year. The Assistant Superintendent's report. We have 3 building projects to talk about. The middle school roof first, then Coburn and the PCC.
All right, thank you. Quickly, middle school roofing project met back on September 19th to, I guess, kick things off. Had a great conversation with all the key stakeholders, really focused the conversation on how we could accomplish the most work with the remaining warm days that we had ahead of us before winter comes without disrupting learning. So basically, work's underway. They're focusing on cleaning, addressing any of the rust spots, and then painting if possible. And moving on, Coburn Building Project. Exciting update. We are under 200 items on the punch list. Just a point of reference, a couple weeks ago, might have been a little longer, it was upwards of 15 to 2,000. So it is making its way down significantly. We are on the first floor and going through those remaining items. Should be done within the next couple weeks. Go Graphics, they were responsible for providing us with some awesome graphics to hang throughout the building. We did want to do some tweaking to the color scheme, schemes, excuse me. Those have been updated or adjusted, and we'll be installing those shortly as well. And then the last thing to mention about the building project at Coburn is the parking lot. Initially, we thought everything relative to the parking lot would be completed by December. There has been a change in that. Basically, what they're now proposing, and which is, I guess, supported, is that they would have the parking lot, the initial layer of pavement completed by the time snow flies, and then in the spring of the year they would come back and add the second layer. This will allow us full access to the parking lot for staff and thus reduce the congestion to those key areas, the senior center, CVS parking lot, and elsewhere.
Hmm? Yeah, the whole parking lot.
The whole.
Yeah.
The whole. Yeah.
Originally they did, and then we told them they'd have to pay every day damages, and they found time to get the rest of it done, yeah. But it won't be a final pavement, which I'm fine with, because I don't want a final top course paved in the winter. But they're gonna have one layer of asphalt down, and all the curbs in and temporary linings. So all will happen. No trees. No, yeah. Landscaping will be done in the spring.
And then lastly, PCC met last Tuesday. Wanted to give a quick update. TBA was in attendance to present their most current rendition of their proposal. Currently, we still are in debate with respect to the design development estimated cost, which is $1.4 million over. Talked about many things, in particular what it would take to get that number under the originally agreed upon $10 million. That was a point of contention, and PCC recommended that we, the school department, Mayor Doug Mattoon, process this and basically go back to PCC with options in terms of which direction to proceed. Those options are: do we drop the project? Do we request an increase to address the last cost proposal around $11 million for, or do we adjust the scope of the work to get it to under the $10 million? That's it.
Questions? Ms. Farrell?
Should we, as a school committee, talk about the memorial project at our workshop?
Yes, yeah, we can do that. Next, business manager's report.
Good evening, everybody. There's several items in your packet. I hope everybody had a chance to read them, because in the scope of time, I don't want to read these word for word.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
The first request is a translation line item to translate documents. Our English language coordinator came to me upon my early days back and had mentioned that she had a few things she needed translated, and speaking with her about how the ongoing year is going to be, we determined she would need roughly $20,000. I did talk to Ms. Hunter about the line item in the budget. She said it was something she was planning on addressing also, so she knew about it, that it was underfunded at this point. So the request is to transfer $20,000 from our undistributed staff attrition, which is caused by more senior employees retiring or resigning and lower earning employees hired. So we build up a little bit of cash that we can use for these other emergencies. Are we going to do one by one?
Motion to approve the transfer of $20,000 from district-wide undistributed staff attrition to district-wide EL translation contracted services account.
We have a second? Motion and a second. How the subcommittee vote?
The subcommittee voted in favor of all of the items on the list.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? Seeing none, by a show of hands, all those in favor, EL translation services, opposed, unanimous.
The second one is a minor item, HR supply line item. We used to have it in our budget when HR was transferred to City Hall for a few years. We had zeroed it out. Now that the school department has a HR person again, there are some small needs in our office, mostly around ID badges and things like that, but obviously some other office items. So we're requesting to transfer $500 from the same source, undistributed staff attrition, into a supply line item to cover that office.
Ms. Farrell?
Motion to approve the transfer of $500 from district-wide undistributed staff attrition to personnel supply account.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? Seeing none, by a show of hands, all those in favor, HR supplies, opposed, unanimous.
Third item, we did some work in the business office, led by the assistant business manager, and we took a look at what we have budgeted for noon lunch aids and what the prior few years' expenditures have been. Obviously, the last couple of years, just like you saw with the MCAS data scores, we didn't have employees for half of a year, 1 year, so the expenditures were down. Last year, you brought students back with high-level COVID precautions, with so the expenditures were up. So the way it was budgeted was a best guess scenario last year, but now at this point, we've done a pretty good look at it, and final expenditure amount we feel will be $110,565. So in order to hit that, we need to move $9,165 from the staff attrition line item into the district-wide noon lunch aid line item.
Ms. Farrell?
Motion to approve the transfer of $9,165 from the district-wide undistributed staff attrition to district-wide undistributed staff attrition. Oh, I think it should be to the lunch monitor, to district-wide lunch aids. Sorry.
I apologize, that's my mistake on what I wrote up for you, yes.
Motion, do I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Seeing none, by a show of hands, all those in favor, opposed, unanimous.
Prepayment of LPVEC tuition for the current school year. We're in FY23 from remaining FY22 funds. This is something that's been done the previous 3 years at least, possibly a fourth year back. At the end of the school year, if we've been wise with our money, and of course the last couple of years with the monies that have been available due to COVID and the tough time we had finding employees as a district, we had considerable savings on various line items, so we'd like to use $400,000 of FY22 funds to prepay for the LPVEC student tuitions for this year.
Ms. Farrell?
Motion to approve the use of $400,000 of FY22 funds for the prepayment of FY23 Lower Pioneer Valley Educational Collaborative students' tuition that will be utilized by the West Springfield School Department.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Seeing none, by a show of hands, all those in favor, opposed, unanimous.
Next item, somewhere during the course of time during COVID, I'm not exactly sure what date, but at the elementary schools, in order to create room to have proper spacing due to the COVID emergency, elementary storage trailers were put in on the grounds of the schools. When I returned here, Kim Hunter had mentioned to me that year one with the emergency procurement rules they used, it was fine to have it on ESSER funds, but the current year that we're in, federal funds have different procurement levels, and it was a concern of hers leaving those units on ESSER funds. So she was going to recommend that they be moved over to school choice funds, and in further discussions with staff Dr. Perone and Dr. Guile. We also want to look at what is in the trailers and try to get things back into the schools or disposed of so that we can remove the storage trailers by the end of the school year. Hopefully, the toughest one would be Mittenegg because Mittenegg doesn't have very much storage, and I know during my years here, there was always the fire department, when they toured the buildings, I always had a concern about how much stuff was stored down around the boiler room. So that one school might be a little tough, but we want to take a look and see if we can remove the rest of them. But in the meantime, we'd like to move the funding for them this year over to school choice funds.
Ms. Farrell?
Motion to approve the use of up to $8,499 of school choice funds for the payment of storage containers in use at various elementary schools during fiscal year 2023.
Have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? You answered my question. I was going to ask, why do we still have these if COVID's been over? So I would like to see them out at least. And Mittenegg, maybe I'd be okay with keeping it because they are smaller, but the rest of the schools, if we don't use it, throw it out because clearly we don't need it. Just don't store it anywhere else. By a show of hands, all those in favor? Opposed? Unanimous.
Okay, there was a couple athletic requests, athletic shirts. The athletic director came to the Budget and Finance Subcommittee meeting with a request to purchase shirts to be used by the staff at events so that in an emergency basis or for any other reason, people in the crowd would know who was actually working the event and was part of the staff. He's recommending the use of the athletic revolving fund, which has a healthy balance in it, to fund these shirts.
Ms. Farrell?
Motion to approve the use of $3,432 of athletic revolving fund revenue for the purpose of procuring 100 shirts for the use by staff at athletic events.
Second.
Any discussion? Seeing none, by a show of hands, all those in favor? Opposed? Unanimous.
Once again, Mr. Dulett mentioned that he's had a great turnout for students wishing to be on the golf team, and he's had to create a junior varsity golf team, and he's looking to have an assistant golf coach in order to be able to work with all these students. His proposal is that for the current year we're in and for next school year, he would fund that position out of his revolving fund. And then after that, if the student interest is still as high as it's been, as part of your FY25 budget process, it would be discussed whether it should be moved over into the general fund where all the other coaching positions are.
Ms. Farrell?
Motion to approve the use of athletic revolving fund revenues for the purpose of creating an assistant golf coach position for the FY23 and FY24 school years. If participation remains consistent, this position will be requested to be added to the general fund budget as part of the FY25 budget process.
Have a second? Motion a second. Any discussion?
What was the dollar amount?
The coaching positions are in the Unit A contract, but I believe the amount for this year, if he's paid for a full season, there's also talk that because of the late start, it'll be a prorated amount, but I believe the salary is $2,170 or right around that amount.
Anyone else? Seeing none, by a show of hands, all those in favor? Opposed? Unanimous.
A couple of positions. Once again, our EL director came to us through the superintendent's office, and position number one was a request to create a family liaison position, at the same time removing some part-time translating positions that she's had in her budget or on other federal grants. So this is a motion to create a family liaison position for FY23 only, to be funded by federal grant funds, a combination of Title III and ORI. And this position would be evaluated as the year went along for any determination whether it should be
in the budget next year. Once again, if funding from the grants was available, school committee would vote again to authorize it for next year if that was what was wished for.
Motion, Ms. Farrow?
Motion to approve the creation of a family liaison position for the FY '23 year only to be funded by federal grant funds, Title III, and ORI. This position will be evaluated during the remainder of this school year. If federal grant funding is still available to cover this position for FY '24, the school department will return to the school committee to request approval that this position be extended through the next fiscal year. And I believe the position was going to be funded at $42,000.
42,000, but then during the last meeting, we determined it should be an hourly position like the
Okay.
other one is. So breaking that down, it would be at $21.46 per hour, a full year position.
Do I have a second? Any discussion? Seeing none, by a show of hands, all those in favor? Opposed? Unanimous.
Once again, along the same lines, we were looking at the use of EL paraprofessionals throughout the district, and while there are several at the elementary level and one or two at the high school level, there isn't one at the middle school level, and this came about when I was studying our para position funding and noticed that they were sort of hijacking a special ed para at the middle school to deal with some of the issues going on. So as we uncovered what was going on there and trying to determine what should happen, the EL director said that it's been on her paperwork for the last few months to try to see if she could get a EL para at the middle school to deal with all the student issues that we have there with refugee students. So once again, there's federal funds available on the ORI grant that could pay for this position for this year, and under the same logic as that last position, they would return to the school committee if their funding is still available in FY '24 to request approval to extend it. So this is a one-year request at this point.
Ms. Farrow?
Motion to approve the creation of a middle school EL paraprofessional position for FY '23 only to be funded by federal grant funds, ORI. This position will be evaluated during the remainder of this year. If federal grant funding is still available to cover this position for FY '24, the school department will return to the school committee to request approval that this position be extended through the next fiscal year.
Any discussion? Seeing none, by a show of hands, all those in favor? Opposed? Unanimous. Two more.
Okay, lastly, substitute rates. Use of a substitute administrator. We currently don't have, we have substitute rates in place for many of the types of employees that we need to use, but we don't have anything in place for an on-call administrator rate, for especially at the elementary school. The secondary level schools have vice principals that can cover the school. So what we looked at was taking the elementary master's step 1 rate, which is the lowest rate, and taking 90% of that, which is somewhat along the way of the logic that was done for some other earlier substitute work that was done, I believe, by Julia. We'd like a motion to approve a daily on-call administrator rate, which, once again, 90% of the elementary master step 1 rate, which for FY '23 computes to a rate of $453 a day for when an administrator is out.
Ms. Farrow?
Motion to approve a daily on-call administrator rate to be used for elementary school coverage. This rate will be at 90% of the elementary master's step 1 rate. And I believe this was only for schools that don't have assistant principals.
Correct.
Any discussion? Seeing none, by a show of hands, all those in favor? Opposed? Unanimous.
Clerical substitute rates. This one here, we're looking for approval of 3 options, depending on where we manage to find the substitute coming in. If it's a retired clerical worker from the West Springfield Public Schools, they would earn their hourly rate that they were earning at the time of their retirement. That's basically what we've been doing when we are able to call back our retired clerical workers. It's just not passed by school committee anywhere, so we'd like to get that put into our paperwork so that when an auditor comes in, we can show them that it's been approved. These other two options are currently employed West Springfield Public Schools hourly employees would earn their currently hourly rate of pay as they're filling in, or the clerical S5 step 1 rate, whichever is greater. Sometimes there's somebody working in a school, there could be one of these noon lunch aides that is qualified to sit in for a day to cover a vacancy. Obviously, the clerical rate would be higher, but there also could be a para that could sit in, and the para rate, depending on how much seniority they have, could actually be higher. So we need to pay them, they can't lose money by taking a job, so we're just trying to codify how we would be choosing the rate of pay for them. And then lastly, if we find other individuals that can be used as a substitute clerk, we would put them on the S5 step 1 rate that is currently in effect for the school year that they are substituting in.
Ms. Rowe?
Motion to approve a daily, whoops, that's the wrong one. Motion to approve the following substitute clerical rates. 1, retired West Springfield Public Schools clerical would earn their hourly rate that they were earning at the time of their retirement. 2, currently employed West Springfield Public School hourly employees would earn their current hourly rate of pay or the clerical S5 step 1 rate, whichever is greater. 3, all other individuals employed as a substitute clerk will earn the S5 step 1 rate that is in effect for the school year that they are substituting.
Motion is second. Any discussion? Seeing none, by a show of hands, all those in favor? Opposed? Unanimous.
Thank you.
Thank you, Carrie. Closing out the meeting, public comment. Seeing none, thanks for those that are still with us. Our next school committee meeting will be a workshop on October 25th, but we will also have an interview for a new business manager so Carrie can go back to retirement. We appreciate your work for us. On October 17th at 6 p.m. Do I have a motion to adjourn? A second? Without objection, we are adjourned. Thank you and good night, Westside.